And you said there's going to be 3 hospitals?
Yeah, 3 hospitals here, plus a proton therapy center.
That's me getting a tour of a massive new city being built from scratch, and it kind of feels like I'm in a real-life version of Sim City, that computer game I played as a kid where you could design your own city from the ground up. But this is real. It's located in southern China, but it's actually somewhat of a partnership between China and Singapore. It's called Sino-Singapore Guangzhou Knowledge City, or SSGKC. Yeah, it's a mouthful. In the next 20 years, the countries project it will have a population of 500,000. A whopping figure considering the farmlands here were formerly home to just 40,000 residents.
Pretty much everywhere you look, you're going to find cranes, and what's really interesting is how quickly this city has grown. Just 8 years ago, this entire area was farmlands. 5 years ago is when the development really started to grow and the city began building up. And it has its own train network too. You have a train station that just opened a couple months ago, which will ultimately connect to Guangzhou. And then you have a bus depot over here, which is expected to open soon as well.
Guangzhou is China's 3rd largest city, right behind Shanghai and Beijing. It's about a 45-minute drive from this so-called Knowledge City, which recently connected its own underground train system to the massive network of trains in Guangzhou. The government is relocating farmers to high-rise buildings within the area and encouraging these new companies to hire and retrain them. Knowledge City is being built in phases. It started with phase 1, which is built for about 80,000 people across a little more than 2 square miles, but it'll eventually cover nearly 50 square miles. That's almost the size of Pittsburgh. The first phase has dedicated land to residential and industrial space along with amenities and green space. This phase alone will have 18 schools.
Even architects and developers don't sort of have that open canvas that you've had this past 10 years. What is that like to be able to just build a city from scratch?
We have a sense of achievement, I would say. Although it is not achieved through myself, it's achieved through a team of people. The Singaporeans know how to build a city.
Here's how the joint partnership between the two countries works. It's a 50-50 joint venture between China's Guangzhou Development District Administrative Committee and Singapore's Ascendus Singbridge, which is owned by 2 companies wholly owned by Singapore's government. By converting these farmlands into a modern city, the idea here isn't just to create an economic hub for commerce and research, but also create a model that could maybe even be applied in rural areas elsewhere in China and beyond. It was also selected as one of China's smart city pilot cities, where it can be used to test things like cloud computing and the Internet of Things.
We are trying to build a new city rather than an industrial park. We are building a new city that we can live, work, learn, and play.
Yet China itself has brought hundreds of millions of people out of poverty in a few decades and is now building new skyscrapers, trains, and airports at an unprecedented rate.
What can Singapore offer that China can't do itself?
Small is beauty. I think at a micro level, Singapore does have its experience of how to manage maybe a mid-sized or small-sized city. So I think we can offer some of our experience to China.
It's encouraging some companies in Singapore to set up shop here.
This area is what's known as a Singapore Manufacturing Innovation Center. There's about 8 startups right now from Singapore that are working out of here, hoping to grow and scale their companies within China. The only catch, the company has to be Singaporean.
It's creating individualized hubs for industries like healthcare, biotech, advanced manufacturing, and even a hub just dedicated to intellectual property.
Many of the companies are these pharmaceutical, biotechnology companies. You can see all these I do not know.
Yeah, I can't see, but I'll take your word.
生物制药, 生物医药, all the biotech companies.
China has a massive population of 1.4 billion. Compare that to Singapore's 5.6 million. That means China's population can be attractive to tap into a much bigger market.
So this is a Singaporean biotech company that's set up shop here in Knowledge City, partially just to access a bigger population for its testing.
But how can this once rural area and still mostly vacant appeal to young tech talent that tends to flock to skyscraper hubs like Singapore, Hong Kong, Shenzhen, or Guangzhou?
We are trying to appeal to them that if you come to the southern part of China or the Bay Area, this is your first choice, because where can you find a place that you are well looked after by us as well as Enterprise Singapore. So we try to make the pitch to them in that way.
And it's not just pitching them, it's adding incentives too, like massive subsidies and free office space for everyone from startups to Fortune 500 companies that meet its criteria, and even offering to pay for things like an IPO application and providing IPO coaching and legal assistance. In November 2018, Knowledge City was upgraded to a state-level project, so now each country is appointing a ministry and minister to watch over its development. Singapore is China's largest foreign investor, and this isn't the first time that Singapore ventured into a partnership like this in China. It's also done similar projects called Suzhou Industrial Park, which started in 1994, and Tianjin Eco City, started in 2008. Both are still in progress. And now, building a city that will eventually be called home to 500,000 people, well, it's an investment in the very long term. And knowing if it succeeds or not probably won't happen anytime soon.
We intend to do it in the next 20 years. So it is a long project. I would retire before that.